This happened in the summer of 2019, when I was desperate for extra money and saying yes to jobs I probably shouldn't have. I'd been laid off from a warehouse position and was living in a studio apartment outside of Reno, Nevada. Rent was overdue. My phone bill was already 2 weeks late. I was applying everywhere and getting nothing back. That's when I found the posting. It was on a local job board, not Craigslist. No flashy title, just overnight site presence needed, easy pay. No resume required, no experience needed. I clicked it. The description was short. Private property, overnight hours, sit in vehicle, do not leave location. Pay is $250 cash per night. 3 nights minimum. That was it. No company name, no address, just an email to reply to. I emailed immediately. 10 minutes later, I got a response. They asked for my name, phone number, and vehicle description. 5 minutes after that, my phone rang. The man on the line sounded normal, mid-40s maybe, calm, professional. He explained the job. There was a large privately owned lot on the outskirts of town, previously used for RV storage. No buildings, no utilities, no cameras. Recently, people had been trespassing at night. My job was simple. Park at the entrance, stay in my car, be visible, leave at sunrise. Don't confront anyone, he said. Your presence is enough. I asked why they didn't just hire security. There was a pause, then he said, "This works better." That should have been my first red flag. The first night I drove out just before midnight. The location was farther than I expected. Nearly 30 minutes past the last gas station, down a long stretch of road with no streetlights. Eventually, I saw a wide dirt entrance with a rusted chain pulled to the side. No signs, no fence, just empty land. I parked exactly where they told me to. Headlights off, engine running, windows up. The lot stretched out in front of me. Flat dirt, scattered debris, old tire tracks. Nothing else. No buildings, no RVs, no movement. At around 12 a.m., I texted the number they gave me. On site. They replied instantly, "Good, stay put." For the first 2 hours, nothing happened. I listened to the radio quietly, checked my phone, watched bugs hit the windshield. At around 2:30 a.m., I noticed headlights in the distance. A car was coming down the road toward me. I felt relieved. I hadn't realized how tense I'd been until then. The car slowed as it approached the entrance. Then it stopped, about 50 feet away. The headlights stayed on. I waited for the driver to roll down a window or turn around. They didn't. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds before I texted the number. "There's a vehicle here." No response. The headlights shut off. The car didn't leave. I couldn't see it anymore, just a dark shape against darker land. I waited. After about a minute, the car reversed slowly and disappeared back down the road. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. "You handled that correctly?" I didn't respond. The second night felt different immediately. I arrived at the same time, parked in the same spot, texted, "On site." This time, the reply took longer. "If someone approaches, do not acknowledge them." That was new. I typed back asking what they meant. No reply. Around 1 a.m., I noticed movement in the lot. Not headlights, figures. At first, I thought it was my eyes adjusting, but then I saw it clearly. 3 people walking slowly across the open dirt. No flashlights, no phones, no sound, just silhouettes. They weren't coming toward me. They were walking in wide, looping paths, like they were tracing something on the ground. I locked my doors without realizing I was doing it. I texted again. "There are people inside the lot." The reply came immediately. "Do not exit your vehicle." One of the figures stopped, turned, and looked directly at my car. Even from that distance, I could tell. They stood there for a long time. Then, one by one, the others stopped too, all facing me now. None of them moved closer. None of them waved or signaled. They just stood there, watching. After maybe 5 minutes, they turned away and continued walking, eventually disappearing into the darkness. My phone buzzed. They'll leave before sunrise. I drove home, shaking. On the third night, I almost didn't go. Something felt wrong. Not scary, off, but I needed the money. When I arrived, there was already a car parked further inside the lot. I hadn't been told about anyone else. I texted, "Another vehicle is here." The response took longer than usual. "That's fine, it won't interact with you." I sat there staring at the parked car. No lights, no movement. At 1:48 a.m., my radio suddenly cut to static. At the same moment, the interior lights of my car flicked on. I hadn't touched anything. Then I heard something I will never forget. A knock. Not on my window, on the roof of my car. One knock. Slow. Heavy. Then another. I froze. My phone buzzed. "Do not react." The knocking continued, moving from the roof to the trunk, then back toward the roof again, like someone pacing. I squeezed my eyes shut. The knocking stopped. A second later, my phone rang. I answered without thinking. The man's voice was calmer than ever. "You did well," he said. "What is this place?" I whispered. There was a pause. Then he said, "This is where they stop." "Who?" I asked. Another pause. "People who don't want to be seen yet." I quit that night. They still paid me. Cash in an envelope left on my doorstep 2 days later. Inside was one extra bill and a note. "Thank you for staying visible." A month later, I drove past the area out of curiosity. The entrance was gone, blocked by dirt. No tire tracks, no sign it had ever been used, except for one thing. In the middle of the land, barely visible from the road, were long, looping marks in the dirt, like paths someone had walked over and over, waiting for someone to watch them. This happened in February of 2020, right before everything changed. I remember because it was still cold, still quiet, still normal enough that I wasn't questioning every small detail yet. Back then, I was doing overnight contract work, property documentation, not security, not guarding anything, just verifying that certain houses stayed exactly the way they were supposed to. Most jobs were simple. Arrive, take photos, log timestamps, leave. This one paid almost double. The listing was short, no photos attached. Vacant residential property, exterior-only documentation, overnight monitoring required. At the bottom, in bold, "Do not enter the structure." That wasn't normal. Vacant properties usually need interior checks, burst pipes, vandalism, squatters. But this job specifically said exterior only, like they didn't want anyone crossing the threshold. The address led me to rural western Pennsylvania, about an hour outside Pittsburgh. Past the last gas station, down a road that stopped feeling like a road halfway through. No neighbors, no streetlights, just trees and snow. I arrived just before 7:30 p.m. The house looked ordinary. 2 stories, white siding, dark shutters, snow piled along the foundation. The porch light was on. I sat in my car longer than usual, staring at it. Vacant houses don't keep porch lights on. I checked the job file again. No mention of active utilities. I called the contact number. Straight to voicemail. I logged the discrepancy and began the shift. The first walk around was normal. Doors locked, windows intact, no footprints except mine. At 9 p.m., still normal. At 10 p.m., I noticed something small, but wrong. The snow under the front porch had been disturbed. not footprints. More like scuffing, as if someone had stood there for a while and shifted their weight. I hadn't been back to the porch since I arrived. I photographed it and uploaded the image. Less than a minute later, the app refreshed. Log status. Verified. That was fast. Faster than usual. At 11:15 p.m., the porch light turned off. I didn't see it switch off. It was just off. I was sitting in my car facing the house. I would have noticed movement. I logged it anyway. At 11:16, a new entry appeared in the activity feed. Note added. Lighting changes expected. Continue documentation. No name, no timestamp, just that. At midnight, I did another walk around. That's when I saw the footprints. They started at the front porch and led away from the house, straight toward the woods behind it. Fresh, deep, adult boots. I stood there staring at them, feeling that slow, crawling realization that no one had arrived by road. Someone had left on foot. I took photos and uploaded them. This time, the app updated instantly. Note added, foot traffic acknowledged. At 12:40 a.m., an upstairs light turned on, a room I hadn't noticed before. I stayed in my car, watching the window. After a few minutes, a shadow passed across it. Not fast, not panicked, just someone walking past a lit hallway. I raised my phone to record. Before I could press anything, my screen refreshed. Note added. Interior activity does not require documentation. I hadn't logged anything. I hadn't uploaded anything. That's when my stomach dropped. They weren't responding to my reports. They were watching in real time. I locked my doors. At 1:30 a.m., the light turned off. At 1:32, another light came on, downstairs. At 1:35, the porch light turned back on. All of it felt deliberate, like someone testing switches. I called the contact number again. This time, someone answered. A man. Calm voice. No background noise. I told him what I was seeing. He didn't sound surprised. He said, "You're doing exactly what you're supposed to." I asked if someone was inside the house. He paused, then said, "The structure is not authorized for occupancy." I asked if that meant someone was inside. Another pause. Then, "Please continue the assignment." At 2 a.m., a new instruction appeared. Confirm rear boundary. That wasn't in the original job. The rear boundary backed into dense woods. I didn't respond. At 2:10, rear boundary confirmation pending. At 2:15, technician movement required. That's when I noticed something else. My location dot was visible on the map. They weren't guessing where I was. They could see me. I stayed in my car. At 2:30 a.m., the upstairs light turned on again. This time, the curtain moved, slowly, like someone pulling it aside just enough to look out. I ducked instinctively. At 2:31, my phone vibrated. Internal log update. Technician acknowledged. I hadn't acknowledged anything. At 2:45, I finally got out of the car. I didn't go toward the woods. I walked along the side of the house instead. That's when I noticed the camera, mounted under the eave. Old, wired, pointed directly at my car. Then I saw another. They weren't security cameras. They were monitoring devices. Behind the house, partially hidden by trees, was a small outbuilding, a shed that wasn't in the property description. The door was unlocked. Inside were 3 monitors, each showing a live feed, front porch, driveway, and me standing inside the shed. I stepped back. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, slow, unhurried. A voice spoke from the darkness. "You weren't supposed to see that." It was the same man from the phone. I didn't answer. I ran. I didn't take the road out. I drove straight through the snowbank, tearing up the underside of my car, not caring if it died. The app logged me out while I was driving. By morning, the job listing was gone. The company name didn't exist. A week later, I searched the address. The house wasn't vacant. It had been under long-term observation due to unresolved activity. No further details. What scares me isn't that someone was inside the house. It's that I was never there to stop anything. I was there to document how long it took someone to notice. This happened in 2020, when I was working night shifts and barely sleeping. I know the year because it was during that stretch when days blended together and everyone was home all the time, but somehow more isolated than ever. I lived alone in a small duplex in northern Arizona. Quiet area. Nothing strange about the place. I'd been there almost a year without a single issue. The camera came with the house. It was mounted high in the corner of the living room, angled toward the front door and windows. The previous tenant had installed it and left it behind. The landlord didn't care. I reset it, changed the password, and used it as a basic security cam. I checked it occasionally, mostly out of boredom. It didn't record continuously, only when it detected motion. That's important, because for the first few months it worked exactly how it should, until I noticed something I couldn't explain. One morning I woke up around noon and saw a notification. Motion detected, 3:14 a.m. That made sense. I was awake then. I worked nights, but when I checked the clip, the living room was empty. No movement, no lights, no shadows. The camera had triggered anyway. I shrugged it off. Then it happened again, and again. Always between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. Always when I was awake, always with an empty room. Then one morning, something changed. I overslept. I'd passed out around 5:30 a.m. and didn't wake up until almost 2 in the afternoon. When I checked my phone, there were 7 motion alerts, all from the camera, all between 6 and 6:19 a.m. I opened the first clip. The living room was dark. I was asleep in the bedroom. Nothing moved. Then I opened the second clip. Same angle, same darkness. But the third clip, the camera had shifted slightly. Not much, just a few degrees. Enough that I could see the hallway leading to the bedroom. I felt uncomfortable immediately. I never moved the camera. I opened the fourth clip. The camera angle had changed again. Now it was pointed directly down the hallway, toward my bedroom door. The fifth clip made my stomach drop. The bedroom door was open. I was still asleep. You could see the edge of the bed. The sixth clip lasted longer than the others. The camera angle was perfectly centered on the doorway. Nothing moved for almost a full minute. Then the motion alert triggered again. The seventh clip. This one had no video, just audio. You could hear slow breathing. Not mine. It was closer to the camera. I checked the timestamps again. Every single clip happened only after I fell asleep. Never before. Never while I was awake. That night I tested it. I stayed awake all night and watched the live feed on my phone. Nothing triggered, no alerts. At 6 a.m., I lay down on my bed. Didn't sleep, just closed my eyes. At 6:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened my eyes. The room was empty. The live feed showed the camera had tilted slightly. Again. I sat up instantly. The motion stopped. No more alerts. I didn't sleep after that. The next day, I reviewed weeks of footage. That's when I saw the pattern. The camera never recorded movement. It recorded position changes. Every night I slept, the camera angle moved a little more. Not abruptly, incrementally. Like something was adjusting it between recordings. And then I noticed the final detail that broke me. In none of the clips, not one, did the camera ever capture me waking up. The last clip always ended seconds before I stirred. I unplugged the camera. I removed it from the wall. I put it in a box. That night I slept with the lights on. No alerts, obviously, but around 6:30 a.m., I woke up suddenly. Not from a noise, from the feeling of being watched. I opened my eyes. My bedroom door was open. I don't leave it open. And sitting on the floor outside my room was the camera, powered on, lens facing inward. I moved out 2 days later. I threw the camera away at a gas station dumpster miles from my house. Months later, curiosity got the better of me. I logged into the old account one last time. The camera was still listed, still active, streaming from a new location. The device name had been changed. It now read, Sleep State Reference, Subject Stable. I deleted the account. But sometimes when I wake up suddenly in the early morning, before I move, I stay perfectly still, just in case something is waiting for me to fall asleep again.